Good morning and welcome to the Morning Spotlight Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ham, coming to you as always from the Spotlight Studios here in Morristown, New Jersey. My guest today has spent the last 4 years learning the strategies and techniques from some of the top marketers in the world on how to create content that turns into profit. In the last few years, they've helped companies like Orangetheory, Redbull, and more. They're currently working with long-form content creators to turn their content into bite-sized, value-packed, cash-grabbing assets so that they can multiply their message and impact more people. They are the BizBros. BizBros, what's up, guys?
What's up, Mike?
What's up, Mike? First of all, thank you so much for upping our fashion game today. We really appreciate it.
We had to, man.
I like to think of myself as a trendsetter, and to have you guys, I mean, like, for the people that are watching this on video, you guys have a lot going on. You got the stickers, you got that cool sign in the background, you have the bookshelf with those toys on it. So I knew walking into this, I had to bring it, because I normally don't, like, this is pretty much it. This is like my max style, but I'm glad I was able to convince you guys to throw a couple unbuttoned short sleeve shirts on top of your t-shirts.
Mike, I'm gonna let you in a secret here. We actually have done some episodes on Thursdays that we call Tropic Thunder Thursdays, right? Guess what? We just found the new fashion style for Tropic Thunder Thursday. It's just perfect.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm glad that I was able to give that to you guys. I mean, I didn't even know that was going to happen, but I'm glad that I was able to influence you in that way. So I'm very proud of myself.
Absolutely. And we will be sharing that information too in Tropic Thunder Thursday, right? I was like, guys, go check out Mike Ham, because he is the one that started this entire thing right here.
Yeah. No, I love it. I mean, but Luis, we got to get you an actual shirt with some flowers on it.
You could actually see little flamingos over here.
Okay, flamingos. I think flamingos are good. I'll allow it. Yeah. All right. So first question out of the gate: can you hit me with the siren? Love it. That's a good way to start. So, all right. So let's get to know you guys a little bit more. So you're from Venezuela. You live in Jacksonville. You've had a very interesting path in life. I was just actually listening yesterday, doing my epic research that I do prior to every episode. I was listening to you on Larry Roberts' Readily Random podcast, just to kind of get, steal all of Larry's questions and basically copycat his episode on my show, because that's what I do all the time anyway. So talk to me, like, when did you guys both come over from Venezuela?
Yeah. I was the first one here in 2010. We came with soccer scholarships, right? So that was a dream back in the day where, we grew up in Venezuela. That was our north, where everything that we did in our life was dedicated to make it professionally. We had a few experiences where we played in Europe, and, that could be a whole episode on its own on what the soccer part of our life was. But 2010 was the year that I came here, and Fonzie came the year after in 2011 to the States, also on a soccer scholarship.
Gotcha. So is it hard to go from, do people, I feel like in Venezuela, which I've never been to and have no real concept of what it's all about. I feel like everybody plays soccer in Venezuela. I feel like you either play baseball or you play soccer. Is that true?
That is pretty accurate. Yeah. It's either baseball or soccer, mostly baseball. Baseball is the main sport back home.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's very different because in here, people have multiple sports per season, right? So everybody that I've met, pretty much, they have played multiple sports throughout their life.
Right.
We grew up playing soccer. That's it, all year long. I mean, we lived in the tropic, right? So there's no cold weather that is gonna, the snow's not gonna mess up the soccer field.
Which the soccer fields were dirt
and rocks.
So yeah.
So you don't want mud. That's you definitely don't want mud, because then you have mud and rocks. Is that worse than dirt and rocks?
We used to like mud, right? Because we would just jump on the puddles, right, and get all dirty, and it was fun.
Maybe you
or mom didn't like that.
Right.
We would get home and she's like, "You guys are staying outside," and then she would bring the water hose and just wash us outside the house.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, I think so. I played baseball growing up, played baseball in college, and I was a pitcher. So that was one thing my mom never really had to contend with, because I wasn't sliding or getting very dirty or whatever. So I would go a couple games without washing my pants. Not that that's gross, because I wasn't sweating all the time.
That's normal in baseball, I guess.
Yeah, right. Well, that is, that's especially on the pitching side, because, I would just kind of throw it, and that's it. Like that's the extent.
Yeah, so
involvement.
you're saving, money in the laundry and your family.
Yeah.
We should make a guide. Approve sport positions for moms to get their child in. Right. That's it. That's a niche right there.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So soccer was the primary reason that you decided to come to the United States?
Yeah, absolutely. Some episodes happened through that journey of trying to be a professional soccer player, right? Like I can speak for myself where I was in Europe. I was there in Spain and in Italy for a couple of years. An opportunity came up. But then it was like that moment that you realize, man, like I don't really want to go through this journey, right? A lot of things happened in that time that made me make that decision, right? I was very, very close, but I came back home. I'm like, I don't even want to deal with the sports anymore. That's how bad it was, for me. And that created a crazy relationship with my dad for the next 5 months, because that was everything that he worked, towards with us, right? He was the one taking us to all the practices, all the games, every single week and every single day of the week, right? And a lot of effort and sacrifices went into the family took for us to do that. So when we said, hey, no, that's it. Like that, this is not the thing that I want to do anymore. After, at the time was 18 years, right? It was like, man, like this is a challenging thing. So I personally, we didn't speak with my dad for about 5 months in that period, right? Where we were kind of coping with that situation. And my decision personally was to stay home in Venezuela and just do something. I had no idea. I started going to college. And then the political situation went very south. It was already going south there, but it was really challenging because they were chasing students, right? The freedom of speech, there were manifestations all over the country, right? And it was really challenging to see a future, especially because we already had that entrepreneurial bug. We're like, okay, if I'm not playing sports, I want to create something. And the fact is that in Venezuela, it was really challenging to create something at that time. So we're like, okay, what is the opportunity that we have up front that maybe we can chase overseas, right? And United States and college in United States was one of the options. And then we decided, both of us, we started sending emails, cold emails with our videos to get that scholarship. We sent over 300 emails, right? And for both of us, only 2 colleges answered for each, right? And out of those, we both chose one, and 10 years later, we're still here, which is great. Legally, by the way. I just have to add that. Yeah.
Disclaimer. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So you both went to the same college. Is that what you just said?
No. So my brother went to school here in Jacksonville, Florida. Yeah. And I actually went to school in Wichita Falls, Texas. So that was a big cultural change for me. I went there, small town, super country. First month, I was like, this is awesome. I love it. Second month, I was like, it's getting a little repetitive. Third month, I was like, I'm ready to get out of here. And then 3 years later, I moved to Jacksonville, Florida here to meet my brother.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, I once worked at a school in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which if you're not familiar with what that is, it is where the Amish live. So as you could imagine, there's not a lot going on. There's a lot of horse and buggies. You could go watch a butter churning or whatever, wheel making. I don't know what they do there, but all right. So at some point, like this quest, right, to become professional soccer players, obviously doesn't necessarily pan out. That because you're doing that one thing, as someone who played baseball growing up, coached college baseball for 5 years, and then now I'm doing something totally different. That was like a hard shift for me to make. I was never going to go pro. I knew that I'm too small. Wasn't good enough, whatever. But at the same time, that was just such a huge part of my life. And I'm curious to know, I know you said you had the entrepreneurial bug and all those kind of things, but was that a hard shift to make from something that you were so almost like it feels one track for your entire life, and then you have to get off that track and do something totally different? Was that a difficult transition to make?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, different part of the stories at different times. For me personally was in 2015, if I'm not mistaken, 2014, 2015, around that time. That's when I actually got to Jacksonville. I was on my way to go to a different school in North Carolina, and there was a new professional team here in Jacksonville, Florida, and I decided to try out. I was like, I'm just going to go see if I'm in shape for my season with my new school, and I'm just going to have fun. Turns out the guys were like, hey, we want you on the team. So I got super excited. This is my opportunity, my time to shine. I grabbed my nice flowery shirt, put it on, right? Time to perform. Yeah. And after, somewhere in that year, the coaches come to me and they're like, hey, Luis, we really like you, but unfortunately, we cannot sign you. We cannot offer you a contract. And that was heartbreaking for me because I knew that was probably my last opportunity at making it as a professional soccer player. So I remember that was like 7 a.m. in the morning. We had super early practices. So talk about ruining someone's day.
Yeah, seriously.
And I went back home and I was eating cereal, right? I was staying with my girlfriend at the time. All of a sudden, I'm like, why is this cereal so salty? I just looked down, my tears, which is falling into the cereal, right? I was like,
God.
Oh, man, this is so sad. My girlfriend came. Why are you crying? But that was the day. And honestly, that was the moment right there in that breakfast that I told myself, what am I going to do now? What's next? Right. And it did took a few months for us to start for me personally, to start discovering what I could get into or what not. But the immediate need was to make money, if I'm being honest, right? Like the immediate need, the trigger of entrepreneurship was a little bit of greed. I'm not going to lie. I was in need of money for myself to survive, money for us bringing our parents from Venezuela, right? Which is still one of our main drivers. And I started Googling, how can I make money online, right? How can I make more money? And, Google took us here and there, started showing us some ads. And then we bought into entrepreneurship and started, a few ventures. It all started with stickers, but, that's a very interesting story. Stickers and T-shirts, and eventually grew up to the agency, the content multipurposing agency that we have right now.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about the stickers, because it was stickers, then it was T-shirts, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually you got further down the line, you got to what you're doing now. But let's talk about that sticker T-shirt life.
Yeah. So
I guess.
There was this afternoon, right? And we used to live in a house with 7 bedrooms, right? Like right after college, and we called it the frat house. And, it was me, Katie, who's my wife now, Fonzie, a few roommates. So it was like a total of 6 of us, right? Yeah. A few dogs,
three dogs, 1 cat.
It was a little interesting, right? So one afternoon, roommate, Steve, which we love, by the way, still, he comes in and he's like, guys, I had this incredible idea, right? And this is a guy that codes. It's like very like technology guy. And we never really expected this from him. And he gave me like, hey, I have an idea. Let's create stickers and sell them. And we both, obviously, being beaten by the entrepreneurship bug, we're like, absolutely, let's do it. And then he immediately, right, our yes was like, maybe this is something that we'll look down the road in a week or 2 weeks. The next day, he comes in and he's like, hey, I just bought this vinyl cutting machine. We got to start doing this now. And we're like, okay, so we got
talk about going all in.
Yeah, all in. Right. Yeah.
So we're like, okay, how do we design the stickers? Like, what software do we use? Like, what software do we use to transfer the designs into the machine? How do the machine actually works? How do we actually cut the stickers? So obviously, we started learning all these like skills, I guess, and we just went out. I was working with Orangetheory at the time, and I used those relations. We were like, hey, by the way, my side gig is I'm selling stickers. Do you want some, right? And that's why we're such a fan of stickers, and something fun's coming for the brand soon. But we're like, okay, and we started doing this, and then we realized very quickly that we actually had to sell a ton of stickers.
Part of our roommate's pitch was, hey guys, let's do stickers. They have great margins. And our answer was, that's awesome. What are margins, first of all, right? Yeah. That's how little we knew about things. Right. Yeah. And then we're like, wow, so it actually costs us like 10 cents to make a sticker, and we can sell it for $5, $10. That's amazing. Yeah. But guess what? How many of those $10 stickers you need to sell? And then how are you going to market, right? How are you going to call the people that you're going to, all these things, like my brother mentioned, the skills, right? And that's part of entrepreneurship, right? Now we look back at it and we're happy that happened, because it allowed us to build some skills that we still use today with our business. But probably one of the most important ones was learning how to delegate and outsource what you don't know how to do instead of trying to learn absolutely everything.
Yeah. Right. And the funny is that the transition from stickers to T-shirt happened almost immediately too, right? Because we were in this learning phase where we're like consuming a ton of content on how to do things, right? And this opportunity came up to travel to Orlando and go to this massive conference called the Surf Expo, right? So we walk in there and we're like, this is a great opportunity for us to meet all these stores, right? And sell them the stickers. We're like, hey, we'll create stickers for you and we'll send them to you. So we went down to Orlando. We're in the line. In the middle of the line, we realized that to get into the event, you needed a working functional website. And we had no working functional website. So we had somewhat of a thing on Shopify, and we were like, oh crap, we got to do this. So our roommate pulls out his phone and he's like, starts like tinkering around, putting the logo, so we can show that the site is actually live. Right. And it wasn't until like 2 seconds before we actually got to the booth where like they were, accepting the people. The person is like, hey, sounds good. What's your website? Right. And we didn't have it on the initial form. So she had to type it and can you show me? And then my roommate just pulls out the phone and it's like, 2 seconds, like, hey, here it is. And she's like, okay, go in. And we're like, whew, okay, we made it happen, right? So we walked in and one of the pieces that we saw was this incredible screen printing machine, 4 heads, beautiful, incredible, right? At the time. And we were both like, gold eyes, star eyes, like, oh my God, this is incredible. And me personally, I always wanted or had that thing of, I want to create a brand, something, right? Like we mentioned earlier. And t-shirts was one of the things that was always in mind, right?
I mean, all cool brands have t-shirts, right?
Have their merch. Exactly.
Look at that. Look at that.
Like I made the joke the other day that I think I put out a merch store before I even launched an episode because I was like, I want a t-shirt with my face on it. Like no doubt about it. So yeah, I'm into it. There you go. Right.
This t-shirt that we have.
Yeah.
These are the last t-shirts we ever screen printed ourselves.
Wow.
With our own hands before quitting that forever.
Yeah. So, we're like, oh, this is good. Again, our roommate came 2 days later. He's like, guys, I bought the machine. And we're like, how? Like, we have no money. I mean, like, I just put it on a credit card. So now we actually have to go sell t-shirts. So we're now selling stickers and now selling t-shirts. But at the same time, we were the ones in the Florida garage at 90-degree weather at night with 90% humidity, printing these t-shirts, right? And the process was incredibly painful to say the least, right? Because we're coming from our jobs, starting this process at 7, 8 at night, finishing the 300 prints at 3 a.m. in the morning. It was happening. We were not out selling because we didn't want to produce the things, right? So again, a lot of lessons came from that experience. Specifically to that one is, you got to actually enjoy what you're doing if you're going to actually tackle it. For a second there, for a few months, the relationship with our roommate went down the toilet because we didn't really know how to communicate, like in a business environment, like separate personal from business and have clear goals, clear processes. We had no business.
We had no business. We didn't know how to communicate either personal or business. That's one of the most important skills that we've developed in this entrepreneurial journey.
Right.
But yeah, the pain was huge and it just collapsed, all of it.
And that's when the episode with the t-shirt ends and then new things come along.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're weaving the story as we go. So when we get to, one of the things that I think is interesting when you're talking about the sticker thing and then the t-shirts, and then we're going to get into the content and profit stuff, I'm sure eventually, right? Because that's part of the story that we're telling, is just like getting into something with no knowledge and just trying to figure it out because you were just like, you had this responsibility to yourselves. You mentioned before you had a responsibility to your family back home. So one of the things that I think is very interesting, and like, so for me, when I started this show, I was like, I'm going to start a podcast, and had never listened to podcasts before. I just was like, here we go, and just started it.
Yep.
Is that something that you guys see as something that you've been doing like that particular way? Like just do it and then figure it out as you go. Is that what you guys are doing now? Or is it something that because you had those experiences, you're a little bit more planned out when you started this stuff?
Great question.
Yeah, it's an incredible question. I think we are still a little bit on that mindset. And honestly, I think that's a trait from entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
I just pulled up the definition for entrepreneur right here. A person who organizes and operates a business, taking on greater than normal financial risk in order to do so. I would say not just financial risk, right? But like risk on any resources that you may have, which is time as well, right? Well, because at that point in time, we didn't have the money, right, to maybe hire somebody to do the t-shirts for us, but we had the time, which most people say is the most precious resource that you own, and we would dedicate all this time to learn all these things. Now, entrepreneurship is a series of challenges, right? It is what it is. You're just learning how to solve these problems over and over again, right? One after the other one. And that's not to say that we don't have problems right now. Like, of course, like problems arise in the business, and we need to be open and willing to learn how to solve those challenges. Now, we've discovered that, yes, there are ways that we can facilitate that. How can we make that a little bit quicker than just sitting in the computer and, researching for a week how to solve a problem? Right now, we use other resources to maybe, let's hire somebody. Who can we talk to that we can learn it from? The podcast, right? Content is Profit podcast is a great tool for us, honestly, to connect with people that are going to teach us something. Why, instead of putting the 10,000 hours, right, to master something, why don't we leverage somebody else's 10,000 hours to learn it even quicker? Right. So I think it is a trait on entrepreneurs on going and digging and wanting to learn and wanting to execute. As you evolve in the journey, it is something that you learn to deal with, right? I think the itch of, I want to learn more, right? It is always going to be there. But now you start thinking in terms of resources, right? What resources can I allocate to that? Do I have the time now to actually dedicate to all that? Or do I need my time in a different area of focus that is going to drive the business forward? So it becomes that game. At that point in time, it was all about learning and executing, right? Like, let's do it as ugly as we can and try to move forward a little bit. Yeah. Now it's a little bit more pinpoint action, right? What are those levers that we can pull to grow the business?
We can identify kind of like 2 periods of our entrepreneurial journey so far, and I'm sure so many more are going to be coming. But there was a period where, as an entrepreneur, we didn't know really what we wanted to do because all we did was soccer and school. That's the thing, right? So we're like, okay, we have this bug of doing something. We're like, okay, we thought it was stickers. As we started executing, we realized that it was not, right? Some people call that failing. That's fine. That's a sample in our life to be like, sounds good. That's something that I don't do anymore. So we'll do something different, right? Then the t-shirts, and then different episodes that just as we were trying these things and learning, right? We started acquiring skills and knowledge that now it works for the thing. And then there was a period, especially like last year, that it was incredible for us, not just only on the business side, but internally and the personal growth side, because we were able to identify that one thing that we're really good at and we actually enjoy doing, right? And then we started plugging in these incredible pieces in place to elevate execution from, let's say, a 6 to a 10 in that specific area, right? So now we can leverage the staff, we can leverage the team members that we have, we can leverage the relationships to make sure that we stay in our lanes with the things that we're really good at and we actually really enjoy doing, which, for example, is the show and being in shows like yours, Mike, right? So once we identify that, and in ourselves and also in the business, what is the one thing that we can do, then the possibilities open back up again, but you're on that lane, right? And now it's super interesting because in the last few months, we've been planning our 2022 year, right? And it's like, okay, what is it that we need to do to move that needle in this specific lane, right? So at first, I think it's necessary, right? And Gary V talks about this all the time. It's like, if you don't know what you want to do, go try stuff, right? Yeah. Go do stuff. Yeah. Go see what you like, right? And that's one of the things that people might be really, really scared to do. And maybe people like you or us, we're prone to do that because we're like, I don't really care. Let's go dive in, right? But there's people that have a lot of resistance of putting themselves in that uncomfortable situation at first, but you need that step to be able to identify exactly what is the thing that you actually enjoy, are really good at doing.
Right. Yeah, I think it's like, to that original question and what you guys are talking about, and kind of what I was talking about when I started this show, is something where people go into something and it's like they get that paralysis by analysis. So it's like everything needs to be planned out. Everything needs to be so perfect but if you do that, sometimes you never start because you're trying to create the perfect plan that will never fail. But you need to be able to, I think, not having a plan. And that's how I started, with no plan. It was just like, hey, we're doing a podcast and let's just figure it out as we go. But that's allowed me to adapt and fit it to what it needs to as we've kind of progressed. And there's been probably like you said, you have 2 different, I guess, iterations, for lack of a better word, of your entrepreneurial journey. And there will probably be more as you go moving forward. I've probably had, in a year, a little over a year of doing this show, I've probably had 3 different, like, types of shows It was like the original show. Then we started doing this, but it was a little bit different. And then we started doing it the way that we do it now. But that's just allowed me to grow, because as I go and I'm learning from people like you and other people that I meet here at PodMax and whatever else, I think that that's just something that's really cool, because you can leverage, like you were saying, other people's experiences, and it keeps you fresh and keeps you elastic and able to, get into whatever box you need to get into in that particular time. So I thought those were great answers.
I think, honestly, we live in this space where there's so much information. Never before in the world has been this much information available for people to consume, right? And now add to that social media, where you can see other people's success, because let's be real, it's very not difficult, but it's challenging to find those that document their failures as well as those that just document the good things. So now all this information, all this, perfectionism online, and add to that kind of like a comparison syndrome that probably every human has. That's a terrible recipe right there, because people want to be like those others, right? They want the production value. They want the perfection on whatever that they're doing. They're waiting for that perfect moment, but there's no perfect moment to start. The perfect moment to start is right now, right? And then fail, right? And like my brother mentioned, failing is just, we're testing things, right? We're gathering data. Why didn't it work? How can I make it better? And I think that's a mindset shift, right? That people must go through. And they need to realize that it's not about having the perfect plan, but the one that is going to work best to you at this moment in time.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then that's another thing too. I mean, people see all the good stuff. Like, I used to do blooper reels because I'm a humble man, I guess. And but I always thought that those were fun. But I would make sure that everybody that was in that blooper reel was cool with being in the blooper reel, because, some people aren't. But that's one of the things that you see on social media. We're going to get to that here in a second, is like all the good stuff. Like, you only see good stuff, and then people see that and they're like, oh my God, like the BizBros and Mike Ham, they have like these super successful shows and they're probably making so much money from what they do. I make $0. But it's just one of those things that people see these things and think that that's what's happening, because they don't see all the other stuff that goes into it on the back end, or, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
So in this journey, getting to content is profit and all that kind of stuff, when does that, because I mean, we're coming up close to when we have to actually wrap this up, which sucks, but
we can always do a part two.
We can always do a part two. That's true. So we're getting close to the end, because I do want to talk about the actual business. So at what point in this entrepreneurial journey does that actually start, and what are you doing? Like, let's define it for the people.
Absolutely. So there was always a business, right? We were always on a mindset of, we got to sell, right? We got to sell this stuff. But as content is profit, or content momentum, the service, right? It started about a couple of years ago, where, we were in this search of how are we present in every channel, right? Like we were already working with some local businesses in some pieces of their marketing, right? We will build funnels, we will do email campaigns, we will do campaigns in general. We will plug in the pieces, right?
This is what we did. We would go to them and we would tell them, hey, we are the anti-marketing agency, baby. And they're like, what? I love it, because I don't like my marketing agency.
Right.
Can you do X, Y, and Z? And we would say yes to everything, literally.
Absolutely.
We're like, oh, you don't like how they are doing your funnel? We'll do a better funnel, right? Like,
we have the best funnel.
That was literally like our marketing message. So we would say yes to everything, which, to what my brother is bringing up right now, we didn't have systems, processes. We were just honestly freelancing when we thought we had a business.
One of those elements was actually a system, right? That's developed now. It's called the M2M, on how we actually leverage content. And the very specific reason why we did this is because at the time, this was exactly 3 years ago now, I was working as a studio manager, right? And these corporate people were telling us, you guys have to create content. Like today, every company has to be a media company as well, right? So they're like, you guys have to create content, but then there's no guidelines, or the guidelines were like, don't do this, right? And we're like, okay, there's no freedom here. How can I actually not gonna want to sit for 20 hours because I have my business to run, I have my coaches to train, I have my salespeople to train. There's no time for this. How can we leverage this? And that's the question that we started doing. So we started creating this system where, from one piece piece of content, we multi-purpose it with intent for, whatever marketing output that is. And that was just a piece of the things that we were offering, but it seemed to be the one that was getting more traction because people always wanted more content, right? So we quickly identified there was a learning process in there. We were actually going into the business and shooting the entire day, and then they'll be set for the entire month. But there's a lot of friction with the people that we were getting because there was a lot of education to do in that field.
Yeah, let's say they didn't believe that much in content
or
in the first place,
or their own message, right? Because sometimes when you're working for a company, right, the message of the company, to be completely honest, might not resonate with you personally, right? So it is really challenging to put those thoughts into words and putting the message out there, right?
Yeah. Plus, add to that a little bit of self-consciousness there of, oh, am I looking good on camera, right? What are the other people on the other side going to say about me?
Yeah.
Right. So that is recipe for disaster.
Recipe for disaster. So, but
you also sorry to interrupt, but do you also see an instance where people so creating content is hard, and you guys create content for a living essentially, and I create all my own content, and it's a lot of work to do for just a podcast, but and you don't always see those immediate results because content is just something that you put out there in hopes that people see it eventually. So was that part of that education thing? We're going to shoot for a day. It's going to cover you for a month, but you might not see a sale, I guess, for, the word, if you want to tie a word to it, you might not see a sale directly from that content, but it's about building out that brand. Was that part of the education process?
One of the questions. Yeah. So one of the questions that we really ask is, why do you actually want to create content, right? Yesterday we were in this clubhouse room, and somebody came in with an issue, I'm frustrated, I'm burned out, right? I've been doing this for years. But the reason at the end of the day is why do we do this? For us, we do it for the relationships. We do it with incredible information that we're getting from our guests, from potential partnerships, there's a lot of pros to do this, right?
And now, honestly, there's also an intrinsic motivation factor that I think it has been built throughout the Content is Profit show, which is we enjoy now sharing our message and we're excited to, share about our opinions and beliefs.
Yeah. So, in that phase, the show was not a thing. And we had a meeting with about, a few of these business owners, and we're explaining, what the process is. And, profit comes in many ways. In that specific case, we're giving time back to them. We were giving the fact that they don't have to worry about what to do, what to say, how to do it, how to produce it. There's a ton of value in that thing, right? Where they can put the time and skills to actually go out and sales, right? While their content is also going out in an automatic way with an offer attached to a call to action to make sure that we're catching those people, right? We call it the safety net effect, and we can dive into that later. But the key part in this meeting was, there was a guy's hey, this is perfect, I love it, but where's your stuff, right? Because I don't really believe if you don't drink for your own Kool-Aid. So, as a service, that felt like a gut punch, because we're we're truly not really drinking from our own Kool-Aid. And the reason is we didn't have the systems in place at that time to actually execute it for us. So that primed that question, and we're okay, let's start executing on this, combined with we entered our first masterminds. We talked about the power of masterminds, right? But we entered and that we were able to niche down on the product itself. Once we did that, we focused on that one thing, everything completely changed. That's when we launched the show. We use it obviously as a platform for many things, but one of those things is to leverage the system and test it and try it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna add something there that I think you missed out on. We actually launched the show at the beginning of the pandemic here in Florida, right? And when everything closed, 80% of our business of the business that we had was brick and mortars. So they all closed. They give us a call. Well, they give my brother a call. He's the one that picks up those awkward calls, right? I'm you take it. And he picks
That's delegation right there. That's good delegation.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's one of the skills he learned, right? And
it's called fear.
My brother picks up, and I could see it in his face. I'm oh, they closed the accounts, right? Immediately, the energy in the room just changed. When you come into a room and it's just everything just weighs 10 tons. That was the feeling right there. And my brother's I don't know what we're going to do, right? Because again, definition of entrepreneurship, taking on greater financial risk. My brother took a big risk when he left his job to just work on BizBros, right? On content momentum, content is profit. And by 80% of our businesses leaving, we were literally almost left empty-handed. And we started thinking, okay, what can we do? So the first thing is you need to go for a walk. I told him, you need to go for a walk, breathe, let's think about what can we do. And at the moment we had a client that was producing a podcast 3 times a week, right? And we love his show. We love that guy. He's not with us anymore just because the format, the way that he does things doesn't fit the framework that we developed. But we took inspiration from him, right? We learned from him and we told ourselves, what if we start our own podcast, right? What if we go live 3 times a week? Like, we didn't want to work with those guys anymore because it was such a pain, right? They didn't want to be in front of the camera. We had to be begging them for them to come on time, show up. We kind of wanted to get rid of them. So let's take this as an opportunity now that we got our time back to actually take action and do the podcast. And that's what we did. Fun fact, actually, a year before that, we started a podcast, but we wanted it to be perfect, right? We had 2 different cameras, the lights. We were setting up in my room when we lived in a smaller apartment. And let me tell you, when my girlfriend would walk in there, she's like, what are you guys doing here with all these cameras and the lights? This is kind of weird. I'm like, baby, don't worry about it. It's a podcast, I promise. We recorded 5 episodes and none of those episodes saw the light because there was so much friction in there, right? We were trying to create the perfect podcast. So when we got back again to the opportunity, the moment that we could have content as profit, we told ourselves, guess what? We are not going to do it that way. We're going to remove the entire friction. We're going to do it based on the principles that we discover and develop through a challenge that we call the 45 Live that we did a few months earlier. And we're like, okay, we are going to do it live. We're just going to do the podcast live. And that's it. It's going to be out there. If we make mistakes, guess what? We learn to deal with them. If we're self-conscious with our accent, guess what? We deal with them. If we mess up in our English, guess what? We deal with them. And honestly, it has been one of the best things we've done. Just take action and put it out there, because immediately the show started evolving. You said, right? You've been through 3 different iterations of your show. Same for us. We have been through different iterations of our show. And as we go, we discovered like, wow, maybe you can add this thing right here. It's like a Lego piece, right? You start adding little Legos and building it up. It's not going to be perfect from the very beginning. So that's why Content is Profit started, actually, is because we had all this time back and we didn't know exactly what to do with it. And all of a sudden we're like, what if we invested into ourselves, into our own brand, and it later become a tool to meet incredible people? I mean, Mike, please look at you, bro.
know it. Yeah, right. Yeah. So, like, for the people listening, because I know I know kind of like what the offerings are now, because you're doing a lot of stuff with long form content creators, podcasters like me, YouTube creators, people like that. So, like, what are some things that you would offer? Because there are a lot of podcasters that listen to this show. So, what would you offer them? Like, what are the things that Content is Profit does offer to other people?
Yeah. So with the service called Content Momentum, right, it's literally the plugin team. So if you have a business, if you have an offer that's attached to your content itself and you want to leverage, let's say you don't have enough time to kind of do it on your own, you don't know who to hire, you don't know how to do it yourself, right? You're in that spot. We provide those plugin teams that come in, and in 2 weeks, we have you running with high volume. We call it high volume because we haven't found a limit on how many assets we deliver, right? We don't say unlimited because that's impossible. But we're like very high volume if you want to, right? But it's plug and play as far as like creating that omnipresence online, right? And there's different purposes of why we do that, right? We do it ourselves, but it has to be a very specific business. If you are interested, happy to chat. Mike, I'm sure you have the links right below, but happy to connect with us at BizBros on social media. And then also we recently launched a workshop we teach the people the principles of this system to be able to do it. Because what's cool is, yes, we do have a framework on which we execute that as a service, but at the same time, we teach people how to create their own framework. So not necessarily just for a podcaster, but for creators at all. How do I master my message? How do I master my consistency? How do I master my resources to make sure that I'm assigning them to a team? Who do I hire? Those things we talk about in those workshops. And then also we offer a 45 Live challenge that season 4 might be coming soon. But I think the best place right now is a community that we're building, a network that we're building on Facebook called Content is Profit, where there's a ton of awesome things in there.
Mike, when we've started this journey of creating the content, there was moments where we were so deep into content, just working on it, that we weren't taking good care of our clients, right? And let me know if you can relate on this. And then you start taking care of your clients, and guess what? You're like, wow, but I'm not publishing. And it's very challenging, right, to balance both. And what we found out is, what is the system that is going to allow us to repetitively, right? That's one of those English difficult words right there. How can we repetitively do those outputs of content, right? What are the systems? What are the principles behind that? And that's what we had in mind when we built the M2M. How can we maximize all the effort that we're pouring into this podcast? Because, I mean, it's not just the hour that we spent together talking here. Yeah. You do the research, right? You do the post-production too. So how can we leverage that to reach more people? How can we get in front of more eyeballs? How can we redirect attention from the audience so they want to know more about us and our business and how we can serve them? So that is the base of content momentum, right? And what we found out is, with the process that we have, like my brother mentioned, we build those plug and play teams, right? We call them the modern media teams, that they just plug into your business. And now you do what is fun to do, which is the conversation. You hand that content out, and within a few business days, you have it bagged, and you have a lot of content so you can distribute. And we always say you can send them like little minions into social media, right? So they can help you out.
Right. Well, which I think is great, because like you said, I mean, a lot of podcasters, I think the stat is most podcasters don't make it past the 7th episode. And I think that one of the reasons why is because they realize how much work actually goes into doing stuff like this. So it's, the hour that we'll sit together, plus the editing, plus putting together the show notes, plus putting together the content to put on social medias, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you're marketing, putting stuff out there to try to get some eyeballs and some ears on what you're trying to do and grow that brand. So I think that's gotta be that is the reason why people fail and they stop, because it's just too much work.
There has to be a bigger why, right? Like, and that's one of the things we often refer to perspective as one of the massive things that we've been able to identify in this last year, right? And for us, the show is not just the Content is Profit audio, right? Like, we have a behind the scenes, which is the live production, right? Then we have the audio release, and then there's a ton of assets that go after that. We see the show as a whole thing of all these assets working together towards one objective.
It's
right?
its own ecosystem, pretty much.
Its own ecosystem, right? So it's funny because, we hear this all the time. Why multi-purposing? Why is this thing? And sometimes we focus on those small assets, but everything working together grows completely. So one asset might not do the job, but you have 20 others running around with the show name out there. We call the safety net effect, and everything goes, right? The accounts grow, the show grows, the list grows, the relationships grow, the value grows. So that's why earlier Fonzie said, we haven't really found a downside on just producing the show and creating the content the way that we do with Content Momentum, right? So if it works for us, there's a lot of people out there that might be interested too. And they have that pain that we had. It was such a massive pain, Mike. I cannot tell you, because the fact when they asked me, like, why are you not doing it? It's because we don't have the systems and we don't have the pieces in place to do it. And that's what we set to do a couple of years ago. And it's out there. So we're very proud of what we've been able to do, and proud that be able to serve the people that, come into our world. So thank you for the opportunity to share that with you.
Yeah, of course. All right. So we are basically out of time, because we are part of the larger PodMax event. And like I said, I just feel like we could talk forever on like a variety
24-hour marathon.
Yeah. We'll go 24. We should do that. 45 live and a 24-hour marathon content thing, whatever that is. You guys could think of the cooler name for that. So we're going to move into our closing segment, which we call Under the Spotlight. So we're going to take one from each of you. We're going to put each of you under the spotlight. So what is one thing that you want the spotlighters to walk away from this episode with? So maybe Fonzie, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Luis.
Well, I was about to redirect the bus to my brother Mike, but
he always throws the bus at me because
it's so good.
He gets the sweaty pits.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy today we got this shirt on top, because nobody can see the sweaty pits. But Mike, what I want people to walk away with, honestly, which has been one of the biggest lessons I've learned from this entrepreneurial journey, is the value of taking action and embracing failure, right? And just redefine failure is testing at the end of the day, because I am that person that I love shiny object stuff. Not gonna lie. Like I still look at it, but now consciously I'm like, no, like this is not the thing, right? You need to stay consistent with what it is that you're going to take action. So pick something that you feel comfortable and you enjoy doing, and that you can do on the long term, and stay consistent with it, and be open for failure, right? Be open for feedback, learn, reassess, and go at it again. Because if we just jump from shiny object stuff to shiny object stuff, we are not going to get anything done. So be consistent with your action.
Yeah. To me, a massive step in the journey was removing the friction, right? We have this hashtag get smooth operator. And I took it from Carlos Sainz in F1, by the way, if you're a fan. But anyway, remove the friction from your process. That to me was one of the things that was stopping me from execution, right? Call it the show, call it publishing, right? Identify what is that friction point? Why am I not publishing if that's the thing that I'm doing? Or why am I not executing on this task, right? There's going to be a list of elements that are going to show up when you ask that question. And it's like, okay, out of these elements, what can I prepare in advance so when I execute is ready to go, right? And that's where we base the entire system, how we do business today. And that's how we've been able to grow in the last couple of years. So identify those friction points and then figure out a way on how to remove them or taking care ahead of time so you can actually execute.
Love it. Love it. Those are two great under the spotlights. And it's tough being the first one to go, but then it's also tough because the second guy has to follow up what the first guy did.
Just wanted to say.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you guys call it? The golden boulders? Like if Fonzie had dropped a golden boulder, which he did, then Luis would have had to follow it up with an even bigger golden boulder, which I think was fantastic. So,
Yeah,
so are you saying he had the bigger golden boulder?
Well, I think we're gonna. I have to go back and I have to listen to it again and really dissect them both individually.
We'll let the audience tell us, right? Like just reach out on Instagram. Let us know which one was your favorite golden boulder. We actually have a little competition, hashtag pick a bro. So whoever was your favorite brother today, let us know, because that is bragging rights. And let me tell you, we use that for sure.
Yeah.
Right. So we're getting the messages that they want us to come back. So real quick, hit us with the links so that people know where to go. We'll put them in the show notes, but what are the easy links to get to you guys?
Yes, absolutely. Containsprofit.com is probably the best way to go find out a little bit more about us, and obviously on social media at BizBros Go. The show is called Content is Profit. You can find it in every single platform, and on Facebook, you know, the community Content is Profit. Easy peasy. All Content is Profit. I said it like 7 times. Yeah. So look a number.
Content is Profit. There we go. And if you want to reach out to me, themorningspotlight.com or themorningspotlight@gmail.com. If for some reason you want to go through me to get to the BizBros, would be happy to make that introduction. Guys, thank you for coming on with me today. This was tremendous. I was so pumped when I got the notification that you guys were coming on the show today at PodMax. So I really appreciate it.
Same, Mike. Thank you so much for everything. It was an incredible conversation. And, you know, the audience is lucky to have you on their side in their journey. So
I appreciate that. And the spotlight. Yeah, of course.
I just want to say thank you too.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry to just cut you off from saying thank you. And the Spotlighters, thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time.